our 7th annual Lenten Luncheon. It's really the 8th year that we've put it on, but it's the 7th event because we had to cancel last year. But we are here again this year. And this event is sponsored by the United Methodist Women of our church, and we are so glad that nearly 180 of you have chosen to spend time with us today. And I know for certain that you'll be blessed by the time this time together is over. I know many of you drove to church this morning to get your Hope mug and your Lenten Luncheon. We've already heard from some of you that have nibbled and tested that it's really a good lunch. And Chef Tony and his staff prepared those for us. And some of you stayed home and made your own lunches. And whichever you chose to do, we have been able to put the lunch back in Lenten Luncheon this year and not just make it a Lenten speaker event. So we're very excited about getting to do that. So here we are, through the wonder of Zoom, we have been able to assemble this year. And although we're not meeting in person, I want you to imagine with me that you are once again in the Foundry Hall. Come in and take in the feeling of being in that room and settle yourself into that sacred space. See yourself sitting at a lovely decorated table, just prepared for you to enjoy. And maybe as we imagine how it used to be and will be again, it will help us be grateful for the privilege we have of at least being together in this virtual way. And now this becomes our sacred space. Now let me say just a few words about the structure of our time. After our devotional, we will have lunch, and Michelle Funk will allow the Zoom genie to sort us into tables for lunch. You will be randomly placed with others at the table, groupings for conversation and lunch. And you may know some of the women at your table, or you may have the opportunity to make new friends. Michelle will give us more instructions about this a little bit later. And after 30 minutes or so of lunch and conversation, we'll gather again as a whole group to hear our guest speaker. But now we'll begin with our devotional. Let me tell you a little bit about Pastor Angie McCarty, who will be bringing us our devotional message today. Angie joined the staff of the Church of Resurrection in September of 2018. On staff, Angie designs programming to help people ages 50 plus live the second half of their life with significance and joy. She also leads Building Better Grandparents, which provides opportunities to connect with grandchildren and other grandparents in a Christian community. Angie is an ordained United Methodist elder, having served in the Tucson area from 1999 to 2017. She earned a Master's of Divinity degree from Perkin School of Theology at Southern Methodist University, a Bachelor of Social Work degree at Arizona State University, and is currently in the doctoral program, Doctor of Ministry program at St. Paul's School of Theology. My goodness, Angie. Angie's married to Jonathan Bell, who is also on staff at Resurrection, brought her to the KC area in 2017. Angie and Jonathan met at Leadership Institute, that's interesting, when she was living in Tucson, and the rest, as she says, is history. They have a combined family of 6 kids, 5 boys and 1 girl, with an age span of 10 years between the oldest and the youngest. The family also includes their live-in sister-in-law, who is an active adult with Down syndrome. Angie feels like she is living the blessed life, being married to her soulmate, having healthy, happy kids, and being a part of an amazing community at Resurrection. Angie loves to work out early in the morning, hanging out with her kids, and traveling to new places. And so, Pastor Angie, we await for your words.
Linda, thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me here to spend just a little bit of time with you this morning. Welcome to my bedroom, which is also my office and my classroom and place where children gather. And I wouldn't want it any other way. I don't always have fresh flowers in my bedroom, so thank you for those as well. The theme for today is hope, and I hope that you come here today anticipating greatness. I hope that you come here today anticipating hearing a word from God God can often surprise us. So, I would like for us to think about um, how we
Hello?
how we maintain hope in difficult times. And the way that I try to maintain hope is by going back to the foundational values, the foundational thoughts of life, the things that ground us. And in the Old Testament and the New Testament, that grounding is clearly the Shema, a prayer that Jewish households would have said every morning, which means Jesus would have heard this prayer every morning. And in that vein, when I was driving my youngest, both when he was 3 and 4 to preschool every morning, we carpooled with Parker. And when Parker got in the car, we would say our morning prayer, and it was the Shema. And the little boys would say, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength." That's where the Old Testament stops. And then Jesus added, "And you shall love your neighbor as yourself." Jesus says, "No other commandment is greater than these." Those of you who are grammar nerds, that creates some dissonance, right? He makes 2 commandments into 1 commandment. No other commandment, 2, is greater than these 2. So we think about this foundation, and I wonder, how much do we love God? Oh, I can't even express how much I love God with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength. How much do we love our neighbors? Maybe a little less than that, depending on who your neighbor is, right? Oh, and how much do we love ourselves? Do you think about that often? How much do I love myself? I think that's the first part of this commandment that goes out the window when things are tough. So I can be just as good as the rest of us at flogging myself when I've done something stupid or wrong. I'm not very forgiving, and I hold that record of wrongs against myself with the best of us. And if I'm not careful, that can feel burdensome. And that is not what Jesus wants from us when we experience difficult times, whether those difficult times come in the form of an afternoon or an entire year. Jesus reminds us that we cannot effectively love our neighbors if we don't love ourselves first. Whitney Houston echoed this in her powerful 1980s song, which I am not going to sing. The greatest love of all, learning to love yourself, right? So as we move forward today, celebrating and experiencing joy and longing for hope to be fulfilled, as we receive compassion and strength, let us remember that the foundation to everything, especially to finding hope in difficult times, is the love we have for God, the love we have for neighbor, and the love that we have for ourselves, or long to have for ourselves, so that we can love others well. Let's take a minute and pray, and I will bless our time together and our food. Oh, God, we love you. We love you. We might not often put that into words enough, but we love you. God, we long to love our neighbors. We long to love neighbors that are great and with whom we share community. And we long to love our neighbors who are total pain and our neighbors who we haven't even met yet. And we realize, God, that you call us to love ourselves, and that loving each other well is dependent upon us each recognizing that we are beautiful creations, that you have put a heart and soul within us that has the potential for compassion and has the potential for changing the world. So in hope, as we recognize hope is always alive, help us to do that through our love, change the world. God, thank you for already blessing our time together, and thank you for blessing the food and everyone who worked so hard to put our lunches together. whether in our own home or Chef Tony or the person who picked our fruit. Thank you, God. We love you. In Christ's name, amen.
Pastor Angie, thank you so much for being with us today and giving us those really great words of inspiration and blessing. And thanks for blessing our food too. Michelle, I'll let you do your Zoom magic for us.
Very good. Well, welcome again, everyone. We're so glad you're here. And so what we will do now is we'll have a time of fellowship we're calling it a virtual lunch table. So we're just going to imagine that we are in person with one another, with those that you'll go to a breakout room with, a smaller group of women. So this is just as if we are sitting around a round table at church like we have done in the past. So yes, it takes a little bit of imagination and a healthy dose of grace. And so I want you all to extend and receive grace. So that means it is okay to eat while you're online. That's okay. So let's just all agree in that. It's okay to munch and crunch and enjoy lunch together. It's okay to even interrupt each other. That's why the smaller group, so that if that should happen, you'll work that out. It's okay to even get up and leave if you need to go get something from your kitchen or from where, a napkin or whatever you might need. So all of that is okay. I do want to ask us though, just because we are online and this is Zoom, that we might just watch a few things. If you have unexpected noise occurring in your space, go ahead and mute yourself, and that will help your group to be able to continue in conversation. We're going to have about 30 minutes together in this virtual lunch environment. And so during that time, we want to offer you some things that you might be able to talk about. So we'll pull that up on the screen. First of all, please introduce yourself. But yes, we have some fun icebreakers in mind for you. And you don't have to memorize these or write them down. They'll stick. So let's take a look at some of our icebreaker ideas. You might talk about, if you had a time machine, would you go back in time, or would you perhaps go into the future? That might be a pretty apropos question for us today. So talk about a time machine. Or if you could have dinner with anyone, let's say after this fabulous lunch today, you have dinner with somebody, whoever you would like it to be, living or deceased, who would that be and why? So those are a couple options, a few more. If you were famous, for what would you be famous? So there's a little in imagination at its best. And then how about this? What was your least favorite food as a kid? Do you still dislike it? Or have you grown up and matured a little bit? Oh, I mean, do you love it now? And then finally, just another idea. What was the worst job you ever had? You could moan and groan with that a little bit together. The main idea is that you enjoy fellowship and you enjoy it in this virtual sense. So blessings to you all. I'm going to open the rooms. You'll have about 5, 6, 7 people. Be sure to welcome one another, introduce yourself, and have great conversation. And if there's anyone joining in at the very end here, joining us a little bit late, so if somebody joins your group in a bit, just offer them a warm welcome. Have a great lunch.
All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed your Chef Tony lunch, or the one that you fixed for yourself. I know we had a really good conversation at our table, and I hope you found a few minutes to talk about some of the icebreakers. We had fun talking about who would you have dinner with if you could have dinner with anyone. That's the one we landed on. We had some good conversation on that one. And now it's my honor to introduce to you our guest speaker, who for many of us may need no introduction at all, as we've been in many of her live Bible study classes, but some of you may not know much about her. And so I have a bit of biography to read about her. Ginger Rothhaas is a spiritual coach, writer, and founder of Compassion Fix workshops for overcoming self-doubt and growing in faith. She has a master's in theology and divinity from St. Paul School of Theology, And most importantly, she says she is mom to Chase, who is 15, and Lauren, who is 13. And she says having teenagers has taught her what praying continuously really means. Ginger will talk to us today on the subject of recognition, remembering who we are and who God is. It's the story of hope and love. And so will you, with me, welcome Ginger Rothhaas as our speaker. Thank you,
Thank you.
Ginger.
Thank you, Linda. It's so good to be with all of you. And even though we're physically separated, you can just feel the love of your faces coming through the screen. And that's just it's like a warm hug. And I can't believe here we are a year later after having canceled last year's Lenten Luncheon. And I'm sad we're not in person, but I feel very hopeful we're getting closer to that, right? Author Gary Zukav has this line in his book, The Seat of the Soul, about our soul is in earth school and that our human experience is really our soul's version of earth school. And I was thinking about that in this course of the last year of what a tough course, what a tough year of earth school we have had. This was curriculum we didn't see coming. This was curriculum nobody was equipped for. But we've figured it out, right? And we've grown. And my message for you today is I want to explore the hope that this experience brings to all of us and how I feel like all of the events of the last couple of years might be this pain before we grow into a higher level of consciousness as a human species. And so I want to explore that with you today and root all of this in the idea that higher consciousness means we're living into the scripture that God is whom we live and move and have our being in. That when we could live in that constant state of connection, that's what I'm referring to as higher consciousness. And I want to show you a few things I think Jesus was speaking to about this movement into a higher consciousness. So I called this talk recognition or recognition, but I want to play with not recognition like we think of getting an award or an accolade, but recognition, which is the idea of knowing something again, returning to what we know to be true. And that's what we're going to explore a little bit of today is what do you personally believe to be true? The opposite of recognition would be unawareness, obliviousness, neglect, not paying attention. And I think that pre-COVID, many of us weren't really paying attention to our souls in the way that we were forced to a little bit more in the last year. I think that when we went into a state of lockdown a year ago, we could no longer run from the things that we might have been running from. We were forced to sit still. And we don't do that very well, do we? We are, especially in North America, we are a society addicted to accomplishment and productivity and performance and what it looks like on the outside and people pleasing. And we were forced to stop all the charades and just kind of get real. And we don't do silence very well either. The world went silent and it was very uncomfortable for us. We don't like being uncomfortable. And we all had to face that a little bit more head on than we ever have before. And in talking to people throughout the course of this year, being left alone with our thoughts, that's a really tough class in Earth School, right? Most of us don't love to be alone with the thoughts going through our heads because a lot of them aren't very kind. We're really hard on each other or on ourselves and each other. But what we've learned as part of this experience, I think, is that we can handle disappointments so much better than we've ever been able to before. I think we reconnected more deeply with the people that we live with. We faced grief head on. We know loss in a whole new way. We built a stronger sense of resilience. We certainly learned the importance of a hug, right? And I think we're noticing all the things we had taken for granted and appreciating that a little bit more. And I have to think that helps us shift into a higher level of consciousness. I work with a teen. We were working together last January and February on confidence and overcoming self-doubt. And in February, she was enrolled in 4 AP classes, and she was a premier lacrosse player and volleyball player. And she was school organizations. She was leading many of them. She had multiple social things going on every weekend. And she was burned out, stressed out. She would come in my office often late, trying to get to multiple things at once, and very distracted. It would take her half of our session just to kind of calm down and get off the treadmill of life that she ran on and tune into herself. And what I saw in late March in working with her was her demeanor completely changed. She was calmer. She was so much more engaged with the work we were doing. I even noticed her face had softened. And I told her I was noticing these things and asked if she was noticing them too. And she paused and said, "I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life." And she got teary. And I said, "Can we explore that a little bit more?" And what she realized is she was not who she wanted to be. She was not living the life that felt true to her. She was being what everybody else expected her to be. And at age 16, we have no frame of reference for who we are or life experiences. So we easily get caught up in the pressures all around us. But what the lockdown gave her was this reset button to check back in with herself and say, who am I and what do I want? And it was really great to see how she started exploring, I'm not all of those things I was doing. That's not who I am. And this is the direction I really want to go with a career, not the track I thought I was on. And so one day she said, but I thought I needed to be the perfect high school girl. So I went up to my whiteboard and I said, let's just make a list of all of the things, the traits, the characteristics of the perfect high school girl. And we filled the whiteboard, had 2 columns of all of this stuff. And she just kind of sat back and looked at it and said, that's impossible, isn't it? Yeah. But look how much pressure you were putting on yourself to achieve the impossible. And what I watched her do was move out of a sense of low consciousness, busyness, expectations, pressure, and allow herself to move into a higher level of consciousness, which is, who am I? And I do want a relationship with God. I've just never had the time to build it. And what do I really want? And what is God calling me to? Instead of what does everybody else want me to be? And I share her story with you because I really think that this is part of what Jesus was teaching 2,000 years ago to the people listening to him in person, was this idea of you don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to earn it. You don't need a title or to be part of the empire, especially in the healing teachings. Jesus always sends a message of you are worthy, you matter, you do belong, you're enough. You're not what other people say you are. You're mine. And I think that this was mind-blowing material for the people listening at the time. But we can all kind of begin to explore this higher consciousness Jesus was talking about right now. So if you're thinking, I wish I would have figured out what that 16-year-old is figuring out, I do too. I wish we would all figure it out at 16. But I think we can also start tuning into it right now and today. And if I asked you, who are you at the core of your being? What is the essence of you? What is your soul? do answers come to mind, or does that awareness feel really far off? It used to feel really far off to me. When I would watch Oprah talk about the soul, I had no idea what she was talking about, and I wanted it, but I didn't know what that meant. But here's how we can start to build an awareness. So we can start with this little exercise, and that we can all do right now in noticing. So I want you to notice that you are thinking right now something. Thoughts are going through your brain. So yes, you are watching me and listening, but you're also noticing the flowers and the painting. And you might be thinking about, what do I need to get at the grocery store later? And what was that person's name? I forgot. And oh, don't forget to call that person back later today. So I want you to observe that you've got a lot going on at once. You are engaged right here, but you're also listening to a lot of chatter in your brain right now. Can you see that? That's how we begin to tune into our soul, because the soul can observe the mind. So that observer that you feel connected to right now, like, oh, yep, I can see my mind doing that. That role of the observer, that's your soul. That's who you truly are. You truly are the observer with a very busy mind. And this is how we begin to tune into the truth of who you are. These are the little pieces of work that help the light bulbs come on in our soul of like, yes, this is it. I've been here all along. Now you're listening to me. So the next time you're in the grocery line and you get in the slowest checkout lane, right? And your brain is saying, you always pick the wrong lane. You're always in the slowest lane. I want you to realize that's your mind, that's the chatter, and your soul is that voice that says, it's all okay. It doesn't matter what line you're in. We're going to be fine today. And that's how we can begin tuning into your soul. And after you're noticing that for a while, then I want you to really notice that that is the spark of divinity within you. That place of being able to observe your brain and know the truth, that is your direct connection to God. Your soul is your link to God. And here's what I believe about the soul, that your soul was with God, and it was placed in your mother's womb, and your body grew around it. And you are having this human experience in earth school. And when your body is finished, your soul will return to God. And this is what I think Jesus was saying when he used the words eternal life. It was your soul that has eternal life. And that eternal life is in you right now. You already have it. We just haven't been paying enough attention to it. I think Jesus was sort of explaining how the soul works without using those words. But you already have it. All these things we're searching for, I think Jesus was saying you've already got it. And it's a linear equation. Those of us that study scripture know we are made in the image of God. God is love. Therefore, we are made in love. We are made in the image of love. Your essence is love. Right? It's so clear to me that scripture points to that, Jesus points to that. And so the soul of who you are is goodness, kindness, compassion, grace, mercy for others. You already are all of that. And no matter what you've experienced in earth school, nothing changes that. Nothing takes that away. It's untouched. And that is your constant connection to God. But we forget this so easily, right? This all sounds really good right now. But by 2:30, I will have forgotten this and gotten back in my crazyville life, and will have to intentionally stop and remind myself that my essence is love. And that's just part of being human. That's part of being human. And so we have to be really diligent about reminding ourselves of this and tuning back into it and being intentional and practicing. Because we know when we get off track, when we go too long without reconnecting, we know we tend to get out of alignment pretty quickly, right? That's when the stress comes in and the worries come in, and we start accumulating possessions and feeling like there's never enough and trying to control our lives and other people's lives. And we get angry and defensive, and we're just forgetting to spend time with God. But imagine if we were all living every day, every moment in that identity that I am a soul full of goodness, compassion, and kindness. And that my purpose is to share that with others. And that's it. That's who I am. And that's what my purpose is. And that's true for everyone listening right now. How amazing might life be if we could really stay in that mode? And I think that's what Jesus was speaking of when he talked about the kingdom of God. So most of us grew up hearing the kingdom of God felt far away, right? Maybe it's a place we go to after we die. Maybe that's heaven. But I don't know, it doesn't look like the kingdom of God around here. So this must be something way, way far away. Or a place we experience after we die, where it's bliss and love and no suffering. But Jesus was blowing the minds of the people he was talking to at the time by saying, you can have all of that right here, right now, right where you are. And all it takes is to recognize that you are made of compassion and give compassion to others. That's how we build the kingdom of God. And remember, his audience at the time would have been living under empire rule. All they knew in their lifetime was barbaric battles over land and trade routes, and royalty had all the power. The empire reigned, the king was the ultimate leader. And if you didn't contribute to building the empire, you were tossed aside. Your life had no value. And so here comes along a 20-something young man who is rumored maybe to be a prophet. And he's talking about love and compassion out in the streets and on the banks of the rivers. This was blowing people's minds. I picture that emoji with the head exploding. That's how I think we're supposed to read the teachings of Jesus. Like, we should have our minds blown by this stuff. We should wrestle with what this means because it's beyond our current consciousness. We're being called to stretch, think bigger, go into a new level of consciousness. And what Jesus was saying is power, as you know it, is completely reversed. You already have the true power, and it's the power of love and compassion. You've already got that. And what I noticed, especially in Luke, where we have so many healing stories, is that the people that came to Jesus were the ones that understood the power of compassion and love because they had suffered, right? They were already in this higher consciousness because suffering takes us to that. And that's why I think this is an opportunity after this horrible year of suffering that we've had. This is our opportunity to move a little higher. And we can relate to the people that sought out Jesus for healing. We've all been there. I mean, we can all bring to mind a time when we were at rock bottom, when we were on our knees, knocked down. Everything felt stolen away. Maybe we were betrayed, rejected, maybe severely ill on the bathroom floor crying. Remember those moments? When you realized everything else is temporary, all I have is God. Those are the moments where you actually touched this higher level of consciousness that Jesus was teaching about. Those are the moments where you realize the truth of your existence is that it's you and God. And this is what I think we can be called to live into without having to hit rock bottom. That's what Jesus was saying. Jesus was saying, wake up, pay attention. You don't have to hit rock bottom. These obviously aren't Jesus's words, but this is what I feel like was being said, is that you already have it. Just tune into it. And the words we throw around, like awakening, enlightenment, salvation, I think all of those words are really getting at this concept that is realizing the truth of God and our connection as human beings to God. That, and the people that went to Jesus for healing, they were willing to risk everything to be in the presence of God. That's what those words of awakening and salvation and enlightenment are pointing toward. You arrive at a knowing that this is all that matters. And so many teachers, generations, thousands of years of teachers have tried to help us interpret this. And we're still not getting it. But we're all trying. We're all here today trying to gain a deeper understanding. And I think what Jesus would say is the way that we build the kingdom of God is we start participating in it as instruments of love and compassion. And that seems overwhelming because it's going to take all of us. But I think we start really simply. And the way we start really simply is each of us as individuals go back to this idea of recognition. What do I know to be true? And for a few moments, I want us to do a little thing together where we sit, dogma, doctrine, sermons, Bible studies, all the stuff we've worked at so hard to try to understand God, sit all of that on a shelf for a minute. Okay? And just tune into you. What do you believe to be true? What feels very true to you? And let's go to the simplest starting point. Start there. So for some of us, it's just, there's a higher power. I can believe that. And let's just start there. That's the simplest point to start. Okay, so notice, does that feel true to you? That there is a higher power? Then the way you start is just to wake up every morning and tune into that higher power. And you can call it God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, energy, love, no name at all. The idea is that you're connecting to it, that you're intentional, you're aware, you're paying attention, you're tuned in. And then carry that with you throughout the day. Converse with it, start a relationship with it. This is how you build a faith of your own that is authentic and sustainable. And I think all of that stuff we put on the shelf is so helpful to study it deeply and really try to understand it. And religion has a tremendous amount of great information to give us. But spirituality, that's between you and God. And what I want for every person is to be spiritual. And then religion is on top of that if it works for you. But that personal relationship with God, that's our greatest work in Earth School, is fostering that. And what I've watched in people who are doing this work is that when they reconnect to their own soul and God and knowing this deep, deep knowing that they are directly connected to God via their soul, then they start to see that everyone else is too. They start to see that everyone else has this beautiful soul of goodness and compassion and their own unique relationship with God. And when we walk around the world seeing the goodness in everybody, transformation happens. And yes, you may be thinking, but what about those people that hurt me and make bad decisions and get it wrong? They're out of alignment. right? They're not connected with the truth of who they are. They're lost souls. They've lost their connection of their soul to God. But part of our duty in doing this work is that then we become instruments of love to remind them that they are loving, they are lovable, and they are loved. And part of our work is to be messengers to the hurting, to remember who they really are inside. Pierre Teilhard Chardin was a French scientist and Jesuit priest. And he has a teaching many of you are probably familiar with. He teaches that we are spiritual beings in a human body, right? We are not human beings seeking a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings in a human body. And I think that that is so important for us to remember right now. We are spiritual beings in a human body in a tough year of earth school, but we're learning as we go, right? We're making mistakes. We're students. We've never been here before. We've never done life in a pandemic or after a pandemic before. We're all trying to figure this out because it's earth school. And then what would grace be like if we saw that everybody else was in earth school too? Right? That's grace. We're all doing the best we can. So in the sermons of Jesus, I read this underlying message of you're not thinking deep enough, people. I'm here to stretch you. I'm here to introduce new things to you. I'm here for you to see political structures in new ways, empire structures in new ways, to understand God in new ways, and show us how it's done. I think that's why Jesus was with us 2,000 years ago, is that Jesus was the embodiment of the empathy of God. So Jesus was showing us the empathy of God, how God works, how God thinks, how God sees us. Because Jesus said, those who were told you're outcasts and sinners and broken, you're not broken at all. Humans might tell you that, but not God. And what Jesus was modeling was that God sees worthiness and compassion in every single human being. I feel like Jesus was looking at people with such loving eyes saying, what if nothing's wrong with you? What if you're not broken? And so maybe we all need to revisit that a little bit with a sense of self-compassion. What if nothing's wrong with me? What if I'm not broken? What if the truth of who I am is pure goodness? What then? How do I live if I really believe that identity? And what I find in conversations with people is that most of us are really beating ourselves up. We're not really living this identity. We like the idea of it, sounds really good, but it's really hard to own that for yourself. And if you made time today to attend this beautiful Lenten Luncheon, you're already way ahead of the curve because you're a loving person and you're somebody who wants to do things right and do the right things. And that's why you're here. But I also think it's safe to say to this group, you need to be a lot kinder to yourself. A lot kinder to yourself. What if you aren't a total disaster, stupid, the wrong size, unorganized, messy? What if you are pure goodness, compassion, and kindness? Because Jesus showed compassion to the messiest of people, right? So what if you showed compassion to your messy self? And then what if we showed compassion to the messes that other people are getting in? What would the world be like then? I think that's the kingdom of God. I think we're starting to catch on. And part of the challenge for audiences 2,000 years ago is that Jesus was blowing their minds with this higher consciousness teaching. And they had no idea how their human brain even worked. And so the advantage you and I have today is we're sitting here with neuroscience on our side that helps us learn how to manage these complicated brains of ours. And so when Jesus says, do not fear and love others, it's not as easy as that, right? That's hard stuff. The reason it's hard is because we're living with a really complicated brain. And so we get the idea of it all and we have the goal, but it's really hard to manage this brain of ours. And so I think it's important that we know our brain is always trying to keep us safe. That's its job. It's the security alarm on the house of you. It's always looking for threats, things that could go wrong, and its mission is keep you safe. And this is why we're alive today, because somebody's brain kept them safe and they survived and the species continued. However, in our very busy, stressful world, that alarm is going off a lot right now. I saw a neurology article that said if we did brain scans of all of us right now, our amygdalas would be very enlarged. And the amygdala is that fear center deep in your brain. It's your fight or flight response. It's firing constantly right now. But the prefrontal cortex, the front of your brain, it's the most evolved part of our brain. It's where calm thinking, rational thinking, logic, emotional awareness, compassion, and love come from. And so I think the advantage we have today is we can kind of understand what Jesus was teaching with do not fear and love others as a shift that we have to make in our brain. When we're stuck in fear, we have to think compassionate thoughts and move out of that. So in our amygdalas, we're in low consciousness. We're not aware. We're only survival for me. I'm not aware of anything else going on except my survival. And we know what that sounds like, right? We're angry, we're defensive, we're easily triggered, we're offended. We're worrying about things outside of our control. We have a scarcity mentality, we're competitive. That's low consciousness. That's fear. But when we move into our frontal brain, we come out of that. We go into compassion and love and reasonable thinking, clarity, calmness that allows us to do no harm. Without saying it, I think Jesus was saying, manage that complicated brain of yours. You can do this. You just have to work at it a little bit. And we live in a society right now that is in such low levels of consciousness. We are in collective fear. And I think that's why the teachings of Jesus are so timeless. Right? 2,000 years ago, he could see this coming, that you have to learn to transcend all of this. In John, he says multiple times, Jesus says, I am not of this world. You are not of this world. I think what that means is this chaotic, troubled, competitive, power-hungry, fearful world. That's not who you are. You have to transcend above all of that and find me and realize you have eternal life already in you. It's your soul. So let's get really practical for a bit on how we do this in our own lives. So I call it a holy shift with an F. It's a shift in your brain, a holy shift. And maybe you'll remember it because it's kind of a play on words. But I'm going to give you 4 examples of ways that you can start practicing your own holy shift and maybe start practicing living in a higher level of consciousness. So the first one is when you are easily triggered or offended. This is a great opportunity for us. So low consciousness, when you're triggered and offended, would be reacting, defending, snapping, anger. High consciousness would be moving to the front of your brain and saying, why is this bothering me so much? Why do I let this person get to me? Why am I angry and offended? What's going on with me right now that this is hurting me? Maybe it's because I care deeply about this topic and I'm passionate about it. Maybe it's because this person never listens to me and it triggers me. Maybe it's because I feel unloved and unheard by everybody. And this is just reminding me of that. But that work you're doing, that inner dialogue, that's higher consciousness kind of stuff. And so then you can talk with God in that and say, what do we need to do here? Do I need boundaries? Do I need personal policies that I don't talk about that topic with certain people? Do I need to learn more about it so that next time I feel more confident in this discussion? That's being in a place of higher consciousness. The second one is when making food and exercise choices. And I think that we're up against this one a lot. So low consciousness is comparing yourself to others, mindlessly eating things that you know make you feel sick afterwards, overeating, over drinking, talking yourself out of that walk that you know will help you and be good for you. High consciousness would be, why am I doing this? What's going on right now that I'm making this choice? Am I avoiding something I don't want to feel? What am I really longing for? Is this behavior, this choice helpful or harmful to me? So again, you're the observer of your behaviors and your thoughts, right? That's living from the place of your soul or that higher consciousness. So approach it with a sense of curiosity. Oh, Ginger, I see you wanting that third piece of chocolate cake because you don't want to go do that task that you hate doing. But is that really the best thing for you right now? Or are you going to beat yourself up about that later? Right? That kind of inner dialogue is how we start to move out of this low consciousness that is so easy to dip back into. The third one is money and possessions. This is a really good way to tune in to kind of how your brain is working. So low consciousness would be, I'm worried about not having enough. I have a scarcity mentality. I'm hoarding everything I get. I'm overspending and I'm making ego motivated decisions. High consciousness would be, I see money as a currency exchanged among humans. You give it to me, I give it to you. It's always circulating, always flowing. There's enough to go around. It flows easily. It's like air that we breathe. Right? This is a big one. Money's hard because most of us get really tight with this one. But you could ask yourself, then what if I loosened my grip and my stress about money a little bit? What if, like gravity, I just count on it to always be there? And I know fear is coming up and there's a reality. And but Ginger, I've got bills to pay. This isn't, I know all that's coming up in your brain right now, but work with it. So, okay, you're worried we don't have enough. What would it take to feel safe? What would it take to feel safe? And then let's figure out how to set that aside and not live so worried about this all the time. Okay, that's an example. The fourth one is how you wake up and how you go to bed. And this one is one of the easiest, I think, to start incorporating into all of our lives. So when you wake up in the morning, are you thinking, oh my gosh, I'm tired. I didn't sleep well. I'm dreading this day. I'm not going to have enough time. Nobody's going to listen to me, right? You're already self-defeating before you get started. That's low consciousness. High consciousness is, hello, God, what are we going to do today? Right? Where shall we serve? Where shall we go? What assignments do you have for me? Who do you want me to show love to today? Use me. I'm yours. And then when you go to bed, instead of fret and worry, which is low consciousness, you are in a place of, God, thank you for using me as an instrument of love today. I may not have even known how you used me, but continue to use me as an instrument of your love. So do you see how these holy shifts can change everything? And they're not that hard. I think that oftentimes we make life harder and heavier than it actually needs to be. I think this is what Jesus was pointing out when he said, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. People at the time would have known how heavy an oxen yoke was. It's a two-person job to hook up the oxen to plow the field. So that heaviness is an illustration of you're making life really heavy and hard. But with me, it doesn't have to be that way. And I think that's his calling us into this higher consciousness. Because we get in this mode of, I have to figure this all out on my own. That's exhausting. We forget we have this amazing divinity connection within us. It's just waiting to help. Some of you have heard this story. I've told it before about Jack Cornfield when he was a monk, a student monk. He was walking around the monastery, a bunch of students and a priest. And the priest pointed to a huge boulder and said, "Is that boulder heavy?" And the student said, "Of course it is, master." And the priest said, "Not if you don't pick it up." Right? We're causing the heavy. We're causing a lot of the heavy and the hard. And some of our greatest work is to go back into that identity that I am a spiritual being having a human experience in earth school, and I have God as my partner. It doesn't have to be that hard. It is said that the space shuttle shakes the most right before it breaks through the sound barrier. I'm hoping 2020 and 2021 is our reverberation, our shaking before we break through to this beautiful way of living with more compassion and love and higher consciousness. I heard a statistic yesterday that said 2/3 of people in this large poll of all ages, 2/3 of people said, I still believe my best years are yet to come. That sounds like hope. Do you believe your best years are yet to come? And how do you live if you do believe that? That's hope. I have a lot of hope for us coming out of this horrific experience if we choose to use it as a chance to rise higher in consciousness and compassion and love. And I'll end with a story. I was in the ocean last week on spring break with my kids. It had been years since I'd been on a beach or in the ocean, but the ocean to me has always been a spiritual experience. And I always feel like the ocean has wisdom to share with me. But I can't tap into that when I'm not in the ocean. And so I had been dreaming about this vacation coming up, hoping we were able to make it work, figuring out how we could do it and play it safe. And I was imagining myself in the water with the sun on my face, floating, supported, surrendered, hearing the waves, connecting with God in that space. I was imagining all of that. But I couldn't experience it until I was actually in the water, right? And it was more amazing than I imagined. And I felt suspended in that salt water, talking to God and having a spiritual experience. And that's what I think for all of us, we work so hard at understanding God and studying the life of Jesus and trying to interpret it all and figure it all out. When I think what God is saying is you're already in it. Just pay attention and float and surrender and experience it. It doesn't have to be so hard, so heavy. It just takes you to notice that you're already in the ocean of God's love. We've already got it. We just have to tune into it. And that's when we live into that scripture that I started with of in God, we live and move and have our being. That's what all of this is about. I want to let you know that it has been a pleasure. I'm going to close with prayer, but before I do, I want to let you know too that if you are interested in talking more about any of this, if you're trying to track me down, you can always find me at compassionfix.com. And you can follow my work there. I have past classes that I've taught available there. We have this really fun thing we've done in COVID, which is a membership community. And I teach, or I bring in a teacher every Monday. And we have just had amazing discussions. Some of you here today are in that group, and it warms my heart every Monday and Friday when we gather. You could sign up for an email. I send an email out every Tuesday morning with something new to think about, or work with me directly, or just send me an email at ginger@compassionfix.com. I'm here to help and support you in your journey in any way I can. Will you join me now in prayer? Oh, dear, loving and gracious God, thank you for the oceans of love you have available to us. Just help us to know we are surrounded by your love and to surrender into it. Be in the hearts and minds and souls of every woman listening right now. Allow her to feel your holy presence right beside her. Be with each of us in your unique ways. Help us foster that unique relationship that each of us has with you. And thank you. In your Son, Jesus' name, amen.
Ginger, we just thank you so much for, again, being willing to speak with us today. You always have a way of bringing us the right word for the right moment. I remember your truth to trust at the beginning of COVID last year. You got us to a place of trust that we would be okay. And today you've brought us to a place of hope where we are okay. And I am just mostly grateful right this moment that you know how to listen to God so that you can share that with us. And Michelle, I'm so grateful for this recording and hope that you will be sending it out to us, because you gave us more than 20 minutes worth of information to digest, if you will. Very blessed, and thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, along with Ginger, there are many other people we need to thank for making today possible for us. So I'm going to ask you to hold your applause until I have spoken about everyone. Again, I want to thank Pastor Angie for bringing us her devotional message this morning. And thanks to Michelle Funk for all of her behind the scenes help that she gives us. We all know she's our glue. She has been our Zoom guru from the beginning, and it's just been amazing. And she has helped plan this meeting with us, create the registration information, and is our wonderful Zoom host for today. So thank you, Michelle. We need to mention Angela Meyer and the staff of the Well Bookstore for all that they did in helping us purchase our mugs, get these Great Hope mugs from the Prodigal Pottery Company, and for having the Fair Trade Market open for us. We want to thank Chef Tony and the catering staff for agreeing to prepare such great lunches. And I heard from several of you that they were delicious. So word back to Tony on that. And I want to thank especially the Lenten Luncheon Committee, Reba McQuinn, the committee chair, Teresa Provost, she did a great job at publicity for us. Kay Ridgway, Pat Bayless, Susan Sims, and Bev Roy. Thank you all for putting in the planning time that was needed to make this happen. And now will you join me in giving all of these people a round of applause? Thank you so much. And now I want to give you information about a few upcoming events that I want you to know about before we leave our time together. Michelle is going to put information on a screen as I talk to you about these. So you can write down information or just take it in listening, and we will have ways for you to tap into that information again. First of all, I want you to know that the bookstore has agreed to keep the fair market merchandise available for us through April 1st. So if you did not get a chance to go online and look at things that you might want to purchase, you can do that through April 1st. And I'm really glad that they're doing that for us. And I also have been told that there may be some more mugs that can be purchased, the Hope mug. So you might ask about that too. I want to mention about our book clubs that meet online right now. They read and discuss a great book once a month, and details for the Tuesday AM, Wednesday AM, and Thursday PM can be found on the website core.org/leewood/women. April 8th will be a new spring women's Bible study, and it is on Thursday mornings, and you again can find more information about that at core.org/leewood/women. You should have this website memorized by the time you leave here today as well. April 9th through 22nd will be our third annual Scholastic Book Fair for the Bookmobile. This is a very exciting time when we get to buy books that will be put on the Bookmobile for our students in inner city schools to have a chance to have a new book. This year it's virtual buying. There will be no books for you to handle and look at before you purchase, but we would still encourage you to buy books for the Bookmobile. I'm having a hard time saying Bookmobile today. And again, visit core.org/UMW for more information about how to purchase those books online. We want to remind you of our two women's groups, the Maverick Circle and the Hope Circle, who have upcoming meetings in April. The Maverick Circle will meet on April 12th at 10 o'clock, and we will be hearing the story of Dr. Annie Alaniz, who was born in Malawi, became a doctor here in the United States, and is doing volunteer work back in Malawi. And that will be a very interesting time for us to hear from her. Again, core.org/UMW for the link to that meeting. April 13th then will be Hope Circle's meeting with Erin Chasey talking about creation care essentials. Erin Chasey is our Earth Core guru, and she brings us always good information about earth justice. July 11th through 17th, as some of you were hearing earlier, is going to be an abbreviated form of our rummage sale. This year, we're going to try to do furniture only, lamps and furniture only, and do it as a socially distanced rummage sale. And more details about this will be available at core.org/rummage. This is in, of course, you might understand, the planning stages right now. So stay tuned for more details on this. And then April 7th, 2022, that's about a year away from now, will be the next date for our Lenten Luncheon next year. And hopefully we will be able to be together next year in person. And that will be exciting. But you know, friends, this was a very exciting Lenten Luncheon together as well. And then last of all, I want to remind you about our Easter worship services that will be available in 3 different ways. Easter this year is available in person, and you can see here on the information tile, 7, 9, and 11 a.m. on Sunday, Easter Sunday, April the 4th, but reservations are required. So you will need to go to core.org/next to reserve the time that you want to come to church. You can also see Easter Sunday services online on Saturday at 5 p.m., Sunday at 7:30, 9 and 11 a.m., and 5 p.m. again. And if you are watching on TV, please note that the channel KCMI, which is the sister station to KSHB, will be hosting the broadcast on Easter Sunday. So be sure you make that switch. You will not see it on the regular TV station. And again, at 8 and 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. in the afternoon for the television Easter Sunday services. So there is definitely a lot coming up for us the rest of this season together. And then I'd like to just say, as we end our time together, to offer a word of thanks to all of you who chose to be with us today. What we thought last year would be impossible to put on, we have since learned in this year of virtual connecting that it is possible to have large gatherings, to value new opportunities and ways to be together, and to let ourselves be blessed, even as we are in our homes, allowing the Holy Spirit to move in us and through us and among us, no matter where we are. I'm glad you came today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at these coming events. And I just pray God's peace with you. And so, Michelle, do you have any closing words for us?
I don't, just other than to say thank you to everybody. And I don't know if you all noticed, the committee that put this all together hand delivered to our front door, kind of these beautiful matching bouquets. And so thank you for that. That's going to be a blessing for a few days to come. And that was just one way that we tried to offer for you all, just kind of a bit of an organized effort to spend time with you today. And so I hope that that came through. Thanks, everybody. And if you want to hang out and stay for a while, that's fine. You can unmute yourself and share comments. Otherwise, we wish you a very happy Easter. Blessings to you all.
Bye. Thank you.